making bread. To start, we're going to put together the yeast. The reason we use yeast is because every type of bread requires a leavening. Yeast, the leavening, works by eating the sugars in the water, and as it eats, it releases CO2 into the bread dough. The more the CO2 is released, the more the dough rises. The reason this works is because yeast is alive. How fascinating is that? The first step is to mix our risen yeast with all of our dry ingredients.
I didn't like doing that.
Would it be weird if I licked this off my finger?
Also, there are more than 500 different types of yeast. Today we're using wild yeast, which is just a term for any kind of yeast that is not used in beer. Different strains release more or less CO2. The kind we're using is also called active dry yeast, which just means it's active rising, so it releases more CO2, which helps the bread dough to rise fast. The yeast that comes in packets, also the kind we use, is dried yeast. The yeast is dried out for storage and selling purposes, and the reason sugar is added is to help bring the dried yeast back to life, which I would say is pretty neat.
It's almost there.
In order to get the bread to be the perfect fluffiness, you need to let the yeast rise for a long time. If the yeast doesn't rise for long enough, then your bread will turn out very flat.
Oh, geez. Oh, wow.
While we were making our loaves of bread, we put one of the loaves into the oven immediately. The other loaf we let sit for 20 minutes before we put it in the oven, and the last loaf we let sit for a whole hour. As you can imagine, the loaf that rose for a whole hour turned out to be the most fluffy. The reason you should let your yeast rise for a while is because, as you know, carbon dioxide is released by the yeast to create little carbon dioxide bubbles. The longer the yeast sits, the more this reaction occurs, causing bread to be more fluffy. Also, when mixing yeast with water, you have to have the water at a perfect temperature. If it's too cold or too hot, the yeast will not react with it. It has to be perfectly warm. Additionally, yeast reacts best if it is mixed with sugar. This is because the yeast eats the sugar to create carbon dioxide. Another fun fact is that each American consumes 53 pounds of bread on average per year.
It rose so much that the top of it hit like the heaters on the top and got so burned.
Heat is the energy used by vibrating molecules. It can spread to other molecules, causing the average speed of all the molecules to get faster. It spreads in three ways: conduction, or hot solid molecules bumping into each other; convection, or hot liquid or gas molecules bumping into each other; or radiation, which I call the mystery heat transfer because it isn't spread through molecules. In a normal oven, radiation is the main way heat gets to the dough. It comes from hot coils in the bottom of the oven. There's also a little convection because the air inside the oven is circulating. This particular oven is a gas oven, meaning it's fueled by gases instead of electricity. Gas ovens have been around longer than electric ovens, so one could assume they're found in older homes. The first ovens were fueled by gas, but they were in the ground, not the wall, and they cooked mammoth. These ovens employed fire. Today, some gas ovens use a little flame to start their cooking. It's called the pilot light, and its use began in the colonial era. Voila!
Alright, Ty, let's come have you taste our final product.
Very tasty. The reason this is so tasty is because of the Maillard reaction. The Maillard reaction was first discovered 100 years ago by a French chemist named Louis Camille Maillard. The Maillard reaction occurs when amino acids react with sugar at elevated temperatures. The Maillard reaction is the main reason most foods get their fantastic taste, and in this case, why the bread has a darker brown color. The amino acids and sugars mix to create mouth-watering flavors and a crisp crust. Although the Maillard reaction can create wonderful flavors, it also can be very bad for your health. When the amino acids and sugars react in highly processed food, as well as overcooked food, the Maillard reaction can produce cancer-causing furans. So as you can see, the Maillard reaction can be very good in terms of taste and look, but it can be very harmful and deadly.
Thanks for watching Cooking with Claire's. Join us next time when we make
Dead babies.
Yum.